You're listening to the IWD406 Podcast with your host, Julie Walls, where we celebrate, empower, and connect women across Montana and beyond. Join us as we share inspiring stories, valuable insights, and the voices of remarkable women making a difference in their communities. Today on the podcast, we have Lexi Woods. Lexi was born and raised in Duluth, Minnesota. She grew up with a love for the outdoors and sports. While still in high school, she enlisted in the National Guard, heading straight to boot camp and tech school after graduation. Can't wait to learn about that. She later earned a master's degree in clinical exercise physiology from La Crosse, Wisconsin in 2009 before commissioning as an officer in the Air Force. Her career led her to Joint Base Andrews near Washington, D.C. Ooh, I'm interested in that, learning more about that, where she served as the lead Fatality Search and Recovery Team subject matter expert for the National Guard Bureau. In this role, she wrote the standard operating guidelines and trained 27 teams nationwide. Wow. During this time, she made Montana her permanent home. Well, welcome home. In 2013, she and her husband, Justin Woods, purchased Wild River Adventures, a premier outdoor adventure company near Glacier National Park. Together, they've built a thriving business that not only provides unforgettable experiences for visitors, but also fosters a strong, family-like work environment for their 30-plus seasonal employees. That's impressive, man. This year, Wild River Adventures proudly celebrates its 40th year in operation. I should hit the woohoo button. That's awesome. Alongside her business, Lexi has remained dedicated to serving in the Air National Guard, now holding the rank of Lieutenant Colonel. Right? Wow. With nearly 23 years of service. She and her family reside in West Glacier, Montana, embracing the mountain lifestyle that they love. Today, we're welcoming Lexi to the podcast. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much, Julie.
I also want to say thank you so much for your military service.
Yeah, thank you.
Wow.
I'm honored to be where I'm at in my career today. And
yes.
And I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my past.
Yeah, and I can't wait to dive into that. So let's back up. First and foremost, we know you're not a generational Montanan, but you're a Midwestern, fairly similar climate type winters and summers. Yep. But let's talk about growing up in Duluth, Minnesota.
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was amazing. I've always loved the outdoors, as you mentioned. And with that, we have our 4 seasons. So with, I think, the standard Midwesterner, you try to make the best of each season. So we camped a lot. Like I said, we lived in the country. And so I came from a large family. I'm the youngest of 7.
Oh, wow.
So we were, just always hanging out and like lots of nature hikes and, and whatnot. And then I think just to keep us busy, our parents just put us in sports and skiing and all of that. So.
They do have some pretty decent, is it Cascade that's up there? What's the ski hills up there? And they're hills, let's be honest.
They are, yeah. We lived near Spirit Mountain.
Oh, yeah.
And then a little bit north was Lutzen. So
Lutzen. Okay, I don't think I'm familiar with Lutzen.
Yeah, it's just up the North Shore.
Yeah.
Northern Minnesota, even more northern than Duluth.
But my gosh, you guys have tons of lakes.
Yeah. Yeah.
The fishing's amazing. Snowmobiling's amazing.
Yep, all of it.
So you guys did all of that on the weekends.
Yep. Yeah.
Do you miss like the crickets and the lightning bugs? I do too.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. We, on my parents' property, they have a beautiful pond and just listening to like you said, the crickets and frogs at night, even the birds.
I know. Because
it's typically 100% humidity there. So it's a very ideal place for a lot of birds. And so you'd hear them all the time.
The Canadian geese are like wicked wild up there. You guys have a great pheasant population up there. Just Minnesota for folks. People are like, who goes to Minnesota? It's got a lot of beauty and wonderful tourism.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Okay. So now when you were growing up, you did sports, right?
Yep.
What type of sports did you do?
Primarily soccer, basketball, softball. I did track and cross country as well, cross country running. But yeah, it was just one sport into the next and just kept really.
So team sports.
Team sports. Yeah. Predominantly towards the end of my during high school. But yeah, leading into that, doing cross country and track. But yeah, I love the team dynamic. Felt like it was where I was meant to be. And I think like with any sports nowadays too, it was the more you did them, you could play them year round.
Yeah, I know.
But still back then, I think it was more, I'd say, doable to do more than one sport compared to today, where I think nowadays, if you start a sport, you have to pretty much do it year round to be competitive in it.
I know. Isn't it crazy?
It is.
I know. Like, I think back growing up and just even playing softball, I'm like, my daughter's in softball. I cannot get over how much practice we have to do.
It is.
And we're not even in softball season.
Right.
Isn't that crazy?
It is. Yeah.
It's year round. I'm like, how do we plan vacations?
Yeah. Yep.
Here, vacations and recreation is super important. So our time and days are pretty limited, unfortunately, but it's make for a competitive sports environment. So talk to me a little bit about transitioning from high school. Did you go into the National Guard right away?
Yeah. Yep.
You did?
I was able to enlist when I was still a senior in high school.
Okay. What made you decide to do it?
There was a lot of things.
Yeah.
I just felt, so this was soon after 9/11. So I had a lot of drive and determination after that to say
Was your family military?
My sisters did serve. I have an older sister, Christine, who served some time. And then my older sister, Maya, served as well, along with my grandfather.
Okay. And did you have boys in your family?
I did two brothers.
Two brothers, and they didn't enlist?
No, they were just into different things.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so seeing that within my family as well, and then, but for me, I think, like I said, I just had.
When you saw your sister enlist, before I interrupt you, sorry, when you saw your sister enlist, was she like a role model for you?
Absolutely. Yep.
So what about her doing that was inspiring?
I think it was about being a part of something bigger than yourself and giving the opportunity to partake in something that can essentially take you anywhere. And it just opened a lot of doors for us. And so we, again, having 7 kids, my parents they did everything they could financially to help us onto that next step out of high school, but everyone's got their limits. And so to be able to continue and go to college
with basically no debt.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
that's smart. That's really savvy.
Yeah. Thank you. It was, and the recruiters did a phenomenal job in Duluth at the 148th Fighter Wing on coming to our schools. And again, it wasn't just about trying for them to fulfill their quotas on enlisting people. It was about being a part of another family and another team. And like I said, doing something that's bigger than yourself. And so
hard.
It was, yeah.
I don't think people think about, you go into the Air National Guard, and I'm not, but you do go through basic.
Yep, absolutely.
You have to go through all the hard things to be able to get to that next level.
Yeah.
And I think those were some of the things I thought about, because I came from a big family. We didn't have a lot of money, and it was definitely something to consider. I know my parents were more fearful of war. I think they have lived and seen some things, Vietnam War and all those kind of things. And they were really hesitant. I don't think that's what you should do. But I remember a lot of my friends going into the National Guard, and they have had a lot of amazing benefits came out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And never had to put their foot on any sort of foreign soil for, I don't know, war or thing. I could be wrong, but yeah. What was that like going through basic?
It was it was like my first time away from home.
Okay. Yeah.
So I remember it was like a bit nerve wracking, but man, once I was there, I really felt like this is where I need to be. This is what I'm meant to do. And I just love, as far as like the military lifestyle goes.
Discipline.
Yeah. Discipline, order.
And know what to expect.
Yep.
There's something about that with order.
Yeah.
We do have a tendency, we live in a chaotic world. And to know that there are entities like that really bring in a sense of security and peace by waking up and knowing what you're doing every day.
Yep.
And I think some kids need that. I know my son needs that. So were you one of those kids that you're like, that this is what I needed?
Yeah, I think, and I'll say my mom, she was just very by the book, or very
regimented.
Yeah. And so I think you have to do that. You have to be that way when you're trying to take care of seven kids. And that helps set the stage. And so going into boot camp and then tech school,
right? Yeah,
like I said, it just felt like the right fit. It was difficult too, so it was challenging, which I get bored easy, and so I felt, okay, it's so different. It was so different than like my day-to-day.
But they also probably teach you how to deal with things that are unexpected.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of training, a lot of different types. And boot camp, it was very much attention to detail and just being completely kicked down, but you have to be able to bring yourself back up and
which operate. Is interesting foreshadowing into what you do.
Okay.
Meaning you're doing rafting, and we'll talk about that. But it's a serious recreation. It's basically trying to operate through controlled chaos.
Yeah,
or through controlling some form of chaos.
Yeah, absolutely.
But okay, so now you're in the National Guard, and where did you start, and then how did you move up in ranking?
Yeah, so as an enlisted member, there's like the two entities, or the two sides of the military. There's the enlisted force and then the officer corps.
Okay.
And I knew at the time, as soon as I enlisted, I absolutely knew my goal was to become an officer. And I will say, I think having around 9 years of enlisted time under my belt before applying to commission, I think was crucial. Because, in any military, I think that once you're in a position where you can become the person that's in charge or the leader, knowing where the people came from or the positions that they're in, having that direct experience before taking lead of it was, for me, it was like the perfect case scenario to do it. Then again, to become an officer, there's a lot of different avenues to get there. But
so you don't work some officers can go right into that role?
Yeah.
What?
There's professional.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, professional fields. So like your doctors and your nurses, you just have to have that degree, and because there's always a need. And so with professional career fields, they can jump in just directly as an officer.
Yeah.
They can still be great officers too, but I do feel like there's a little bit of a difference.
Because you actually have walked through the path.
Yeah, absolutely.
And understand the hardship, whereas maybe somebody that's skipped those hardships can't quite wrap their head around what. Maybe there's a complaint that comes to them, like, okay, what is that?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of backstory and history around that.
Yeah.
So I can see the benefit of working your way up.
Yeah. And just a little bit of the respect too, because there was folks that were like, yeah, we know that you know what we go through on the day to day. And so that was important to me, to not rush it. And so I waited till on the perfect timing, I think, with my civilian education, where I was at within the military. So I did start actually in the medical field.
You did?
And what
was your interest?
Actually, diet therapy or dietitian type stuff. And I knew I had an interest in the medical field. That's what I wanted to go to school for.
Yeah.
And like I said, I had a great opportunity at the 148th Fighter Wing. So I enlisted within the medical career field and then did that basically until I commissioned in, like I said, right around 2009.
Okay. So now, interesting. I didn't realize. So nutrition. So they actually teach people how to have better nutrition and for their role?
Predominantly. So not so much for the military member, at least the day-to-day person. It was more along the lines of, we did do like diet therapy classes and whatnot, but in a hospital setting. So there's diet specific food regimens that patients need to be on. So
military patients, right? Okay. That are trying to heal. Okay. Got you.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
It was. And it was, like I said, along the lines of,
did you want to work in a vet? Or like in a veterans hospital?
Not necessarily. I just had a lot of interest in like health and wellness.
I love that.
And when you enlist, it's different, I think, depending on your recruiters and whatnot. But I said, this is along the lines of what I'm interested in. Yeah. And so then they say, okay, these are jobs that align with it. What do you want to do? So I picked the job that I felt would be most aligned with what I wanted to go to college for. And then within the medical career field, I bounced around and did a lot of different things, but because there's always a need. And depending on where you're at too, did a deployment in 2005 to Iraq, which he wasn't doing a lot of diet therapy over there, but then assisting in any way possible that was needed.
You did go over there?
Yeah.
You did? Wow. Talk to me about that experience.
It was an eye-opener as well.
Where did you go in Iraq? What part?
Balad, Iraq.
Mm-hmm. That was lesser?
It was a little
aggressor. Okay.
Yeah, it was early stages of the base development. So basically they established a base to where folks would come in and out of Afghanistan and whatnot. But we were the primary hospital for any and all injured. So not just American soldiers and airmen, but for the local nationals.
Wow.
The unfortunate reality to war then and now is there's a lot of innocent bystanders. And our hospital wards were predominantly local nationals that we were helping take care of that were just on the wrong side of that mortar.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. But
what were some of the challenges with that, though? I'm sure there was a language issue.
There absolutely. Yep. We had interpreters. And I think the hardest thing was because we also had to care for the individuals that were responsible for the bombs. And
you did?
Yeah, they came in and we still had to take care of them and had very specific kind of high security wards for them. And it was a part of our responsibility, and we had to care for everybody regardless.
You know what's amazing about America is that.
Yeah.
Really, when you think about it, it's okay. We have a hospital system. We're fighting for another country. We care. We're out there trying to get those bad guys or whatever, those targets, take them down. But then they do get injured. We turn around and we take care of them.
Yeah.
That's something I think people don't think about.
Sure.
And it puts things in perspective. And you just really gave me a gift today. That puts something in perspective for me of how wonderful and patriotic we all should really be.
Yeah.
That's my personal thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely.
But so now you're working in that hospital system. And how long did you do that for?
I was there for 4 months. So not too long.
Not too long, but long enough to get a really eye-opening experience.
Yeah.
All right. So now you were in the hospital system for 4 months with an eye-opening experience. And then did they cycle people out? Did you choose to leave?
Yeah, so with the Air National Guard specifically, I think they did a fantastic job of realizing the morale mattered. And I know different branches and whatnot, they do things a lot different, like having soldiers or airmen over there for like years at a time. But they basically put every guard unit on a cycle or what's the word?
Like a rotation?
Rotation, thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
And so, having them on a rotation, and we had an idea, like, this is when you're going to go, this is for how long, and this is going to be who replaces you. And so Were
you ready to leave?
I was, but at the same time, I think, because what we were doing over there, I felt like it mattered. And you really do. You build such a relationship with the mission and what the people that you're with. But I think because those that were there with me, the hardest part was leaving folks that still had an extra month or something and having to leave. You feel like you're just leaving them behind. But the relationships that we built over there and what we were doing, it was very impactful. And I was 19 at the time. And so
you were a baby.
Yeah. So I think for me, it was like, and then you get home and you think that the little things here that you thought mattered really don't matter.
Yeah. At 19, it really does. It makes you grow up pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yep.
And then, so now you transition back into the States.
Yeah.
When did you start working for the Guard Bureau?
Yep. At one point after my career in the medical field, they actually eliminated that job from the Air Guard nationwide. So I made a transfer into what we call services in the Air Force. And at the 148th, they had one of the Fatality Search and Recovery teams, one of the 27 that I mentioned.
Okay.
And it was so this was actually FSRT or Fatality.
Hey everyone, sorry to interrupt the episode. We experienced some technical difficulties during this production, which unfortunately caused us to miss one little crucial part of Lexi's story, her firsthand experience with the Oso landslide. We'll be recapping the conversation to provide you with the important details of her recall. Now, if you'd like to learn more about FSRT, Fatality Search and Recovery Teams, check out our episode description and click the link to learn more. Now, that being said, we are honored to bring you this powerful conversation with Lexi Woods, who played a critical role in one of the largest landslide disasters in U.S. history, the Oso landslide of 2014 in Oso, Washington. This catastrophic event engulfed an entire rural neighborhood, covering approximately 1 square mile, claiming 43 lives and destroying 49 homes in just minutes. The damage alone totaled $60 million. Lexi was part of the 140th Wing National Guard, deployed as one of the 16 airmen tasked with the unimaginable, recovering the deceased using carefully coordinated operational procedures. At the time, there were only 27 national fatality search and recovery teams in the entire country, making this response effort highly specialized and critical. Beyond the immediate devastation, disasters like this take an emotional toll, not only on the families and communities affected, but also on the first responders and recovery teams who must face death and destruction head on. In the next half of this episode, we explore how those in service compartmentalize tragedy, navigate grief, and carry on their mission despite the weight of human loss. Keep listening as Lexi shares how she processes these experiences and what ultimately drew her to Montana, where wild adventures and serious recreation keep people coming back to our rivers, mountains, and landscapes for excitement and renewal.
The breadth of what you had to experience with that, just even the trauma aspect, how would you compartmentalize actually seeing that? Was that a difficult thing for you?
For myself personally, like I said, or you just nailed it, was the compartmentalizing. And so I think I was just able to do that and know that I had a job to do. It's what I've trained for. Get in and get out.
Yeah.
But there's mechanisms in place that we have. There's chaplains on scene. There's mental health professionals there too. So they were there constantly trying to check in with everybody because not everyone's going to respond similar. And so some people had to tap out and were like, I can't, and this is too much. And that's 100% understandable. And yeah, I think everyone put forth what they were able to. And then there was, like I said, even after the fact, once everyone was back home, there's still a processing piece of it.
Right.
And so everyone just had to do what they needed to do, and with utilizing the resources that the Air Force provided.
Yeah. Was that your only national disaster that you were a part of, or did you experience others after that?
That was the only kind of major one.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. And so then, so now we're going to transition a little bit.
Yep.
So you did that role, still are doing, not doing that role still?
Not anymore because the ops tempo of that type of job, you're gone a lot, you're doing a lot of training. And then it was also in 2014 that I had my daughter, Bella.
Oh, yes.
And so with having her and then my husband, Justin, being a full-time firefighter, our schedules, it was just too much to manage. So
did you have your daughter in Washington?
Here, actually.
You did? Okay, so at that point, you moved. When did you move to Montana?
Probably around 2010.
2010, okay.
Yeah.
So I want to back up and tell me a little bit about transitioning over to Montana. Is that when you met your husband?
Yeah.
Did you meet your husband going rafting, or how did you meet?
Yeah, great question.
Okay.
So we have a mutual friend,
and
Jessica Lenz is her name. And she's in the Air Force still, but we were in a military school together for 3 months. And during that time, she was like, she's from Montana here in Kalispell. And she's like, you got to come out and visit. You'd love it here. And so that summer after our training, I came out and visited. And that during that time, I had wanted to do some backcountry camping and outdoorsy things. And Jessica at the time had said, hey, I've got a really good friend. I think that you guys would hit it off and he'd love to take you. I went through all of the make sure that he was safe and all
checked
of the
all
things.
the boxes, right?
Yeah, and I could trust him. But no, it was, so yeah, I got to meet him during that visit here for 2 weeks. And then, he took me to Many Glacier. We went backcountry camping, and we hit it off hit it off immediately. And during my visit here, jokingly, and the friend crew, the group there was just like so welcoming and so amazing. And they were just like, so when you move into Montana?
Did you consider
it? Because at that point, working for the Guard Bureau, my home of record, it could be anywhere. Because at that point, I was just traveling from like Tennessee to Alabama to Florida to do training. So my home base could be
anywhere you want.
Yeah. And so jokingly, I was like, we'll see. And at the time, again, it was just the stars had aligned. A job had opened in my career field at the Washington Fairchild, in that unit where Jessica was actually a member.
Okay.
And so she's conveniently, there's a job open in your career field. You should apply. And so I did. And then I ended up getting the position. And I had said,
here in the Flathead.
Well, so I could live here, but then I would drill over in Spokane.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, because Fairchild is in Spokane, Washington.
So you had to make that drive to
Yeah, we had drill, so typically once a month, sometimes more. Yeah, it was like exactly. And Jess was also drilling over there, so we could carpool and whatnot.
Nice.
But and conveniently, like I said, during that time, I got to spend more time with Justin, and so so we started dating. And then. And I'd moved here, and I thought, I hope this works out because I'm moving.
It would work out because it's a pretty amazing place.
It is. Yeah.
It really is.
Regardless. Yeah.
Okay. So then 2010, you moved here.
Yep.
And then you obviously, were you married at that point? No, you were. So you were establishing yourself here, met your future husband. And then when did you decide that you wanted to become a rafting company?
So and I will say from like 2010 to 2011 was really like the main time frame of when I was like officially moving here.
Gotcha.
And then Justin and I were getting more serious. And then he had actually proposed in early 2012. No, 13 actually. Yeah. He proposed in 2013, and at that time, so Justin had actually worked for Wild River back in the day.
Okay, gotcha.
For about 8 years.
Was he a guide?
He was a guide, yeah. And then, but at the same time, he was a paramedic for the fire department. He was also a flight paramedic at the hospital. And so he was juggling a lot, but on his free time, because he enjoyed rafting in the river, he worked for Wild River. And so he had known that the prior owner was looking for an exit strategy. And so we had met up with him, and lots of meetings later, we ended up buying it from Bob Jordan, is his name, Robert Jordan.
So he's the one that started it.
Yeah, absolutely. He did. He had a couple buddies that started it back in 1985.
Okay.
Remarkably, this year, 2025, we'll be celebrating the 40th year of Wild River Adventures.
That's really amazing.
Yeah.
Holy buckets. Okay. So now that your husband had some experience that probably made it a little bit easier.
Yep.
And you've gone rafting, I'm assuming, at this point.
I had. Yep.
Numerous times.
Yeah, we had actually done a Grand Canyon trip, and then after moving here, it is. Yeah.
Did you go the helicopter down?
No, we did the full, it was like a 3-week long trip. Yeah. And I very quickly developed my love for whitewater rafting. Cause we have rafting.
That's like the pinnacle rafting
place. It is,
yeah.
So
that's amazing.
So I'd rafted in Minnesota. It's a little bit different.
Wait, you can raft in
There's some rivers. Yeah.
What?
St. Louis River.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
And you can even raft the Mississippi, but.
True.
But yeah, not quite to the extent of what people do out here.
Yeah.
So yeah, when he was like, hey, what do you think? Should we do this? And again, it worked well with my schedule with the military and then his prior experience. So it just seemed like a good fit. So
Did you get help from Bob?
Oh yeah. Many years.
I would think that
yeah.
He just didn't hand it off and go, see ya, good luck.
No, thank goodness. No,
yeah.
The absolute sweetest man on this planet. And he did a lot of consulting with me and helped me because what was really important to him was that we carried on what he had built over the prior 30 years. And so he wanted us to keep the philosophy and the And just like the name, like what Wild River is in this community.
Tell me about that. Yeah.
So because there's a lot of other companies out here, which is great. And I always say we all do the same, we float the same rivers, we offer the same trips, but each company offers something a little bit different. And so at Wild River, we're small, family owned, and our mantra is quality over quantity. Our goal isn't to mainstream our business to where we're just pushing people down the river. That's never been about the name of Wild River. It's what we want to do. We want to do it really well.
Yeah.
And we want not just the customers to have a fun, memorable, successful experience, the employees as well. It's equally as important. And with that, we have, like I said, it's not just the employees that come in, it's their friends, their family. They're representing what we put everything of ourselves into. And so it's very important that we take care of them and just have, just like a relaxed kind of family, comfortable experience for them as well.
I love that because it is serious recreation.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot that goes into it. And I do want to talk deeper into that, but I also want to say, being a new business.
Yeah.
It's so awesome. I know we talked about this prior to the interview about how helpful these banking institutions are for new entrepreneurs here. And you had a great experience as the keeper handed over to you that you were able to get the support from some local banks.
Yes. So it would not have been without the help and assistance from Three Rivers Bank of Montana.
Yeah.
AJ King, the president, phenomenal man. He basically took us in, and knowing that it was like, we have almost enough to make this happen. And he just was fully supportive of small business, family, and they were very pro women in business, military owner, veteran. So he found the loan that would work for us at that time. And like I said, if it wasn't for Three Rivers Bank and AJ, we wouldn't have probably be where we are today. So we owe so much to him for that. And then over the years, we've actually grown a little with where our goal in the future is to have cabins within the business for renting.
Yes.
And so with that, we've refinanced and whatnot. And
that's great. That's what happens when you grow your business.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Yeah. But I want to go back to what you were talking about with quality. And Montana is really interesting of a culture as far as where they spend their money and how they spend their money.
Yeah.
And recreation is a deal here. All right. We got tourism. And so I love the fact that you guys are all about quality aspects and affordable.
Yes.
Affordability, super big.
Yep.
But that takes a lot of work to retain 60 plus employees, especially with what they do is on. It's extensive training, right?
Yep.
You have a protocol of at least a couple years worth of teaching and training and learning. And it is a wild river. There are several wild rivers that feed into the main, what is it? It feeds into Flathead, right?
The main stem of the Flathead. Yep.
Yep. And so you have several rivers that you have to learn to navigate. And these new guides that come in, just a little bit about your teaching.
Yeah.
So there's all of that.
Yeah, there's definitely a vetting process because a lot of people, even if they've come with experience from other rivers, no two rivers are going to be the same. One thing that really sets us apart here on the upper, so we float the Middle Fork and the North Fork of the Flathead River, and it's all natural. There's no man-made influence. There's no dams on those two forks.
Okay.
And so with that, we are just completely at the helm of Mother Nature, meaning 1 minute, the river level will be at a certain level, the cubic feet per second in a certain height. But then that next day, whether it could have rained, more snow melted from up in the mountains. So that'll make that river level go up or down.
Yeah.
So as far as the training process, we don't train people to memorize lines like it is on some rivers that are just at a constant level.
Yeah.
Where you're like, yep, I know this. I got to go around this rock or I'm going to turn around this bend and there's going to be this on the river left. We have to train them how to read water. And because of that too, it is. There's just a lot of time that goes into that. It's not something that I think somebody can pick up on immediately.
Yeah.
So for our new guides, before they're even taking a paying customer, They have a solid 3 weeks to a month of training under their belt with us specifically before we're putting them on a trip, 300 plus river miles. We're also putting them through swiftwater rescue technician training. And then, of course, your CPR, first aid, that stuff. But yeah, it's an intensive program we call it our guide school, but it's the necessary, you have to, because you're putting people's lives in their hands. And so they have to know how to safely get our customers down that river.
It's so fascinating because my son and I did a little bit of, they put us in a room, we did some river guiding type training. And I remember just even learning about force. They put training videos on, just even learning about the science of the water flow and the curvature of the banks. And I'm like, this is, I just go out there, ride on a raft and be able to row past these big rafts. But I'm like, wow, there is a lot more to it. And you're right, just even gauging the water levels. There's a lot of wind. And I often think for these families that grew up in Montana and the May comes about, things are thawing. They're like, let's go on your way. And I'm like, and their kids are without. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
The confidence, a lot of people have confidence. Sure. Like, I've been doing this my whole life. But I'm like, anything can turn on a dime.
Yep, absolutely.
And are you really that prepared to be on that river? And it's quite remarkable how it can potentially kill you.
Yeah, it's humbling to say the least.
It's humbling. Everything about Montana, I feel, is humbling.
Yeah.
Where we're from, the biggest things that you see in your backyard are maybe your deer, your white-tailed deer. But here, things are big.
Oh, yeah.
Things are scary. Mississippi has its really scary undertow. But here, it's all things that being on that river. And then now you have tourists coming in from all over the place that have some that don't even know how to swim. Yeah. And now you have these guides and you're trusting that they know what the hell they're doing.
Yeah.
But also, too, that they get on the raft with the right mindset. And maybe they've done their 200 rafting guiding tour and they're starting to burn out.
Yep. It's a thing.
That, right?
Yeah.
What do you do to boost that morale or even tap into it with your employees?
Yeah, I owe a lot to our general manager, Sam Haverstock, and just all of our employees. But his brother Will is with us. They've been with us for a long time as well. But and then just between myself and my husband, Justin, being there, we can just always we have our finger on the pulse. And so when we start to see morale is dropping or people they're disgruntled about something, we're always getting to the bottom of it. And so we figure out what's happening, what we can do to make everybody's lives better, potentially like a better process or a procedure. And so, there's a lot of different things we can do to help those situations. And sometimes it's just, hey, you know what, go take a few days, go recuperate. Or it could just be hey guys, let's just do a burger burn. Let's have a family picnic, because we like to do that. We like to have just we'll pull out the grill and provide food for everybody. It can go the smallest little deed can go the longest.
Yeah.
And when it just comes to talking and knowing your people, because I think that is, like I said, one of the biggest things that sets us apart is like, we just truly know our people.
Yeah.
And because we care and we want to, and because there could be something personal going on with them and like their personal life. And so we care about that. We want them to take care of themselves first and foremost.
That's a real thing. Yeah. Especially I think in that type of industry where number one, you are on guard.
Yeah.
You have to really be aware of your river that you're on, right? And then you have to be aware of the people that are in the boat.
Yep.
And then you also have to sell it.
Yeah.
So they're always in promotional marketing mindset of keeping everybody entertained.
Yep.
And that would be hard.
Oh, yeah.
And do you see that kind of at the end of the season? Do you see
there can be
burn out a little bit more?
Yeah. And I think, again, with Sam, he's just really put together such a phenomenal program for us. And he's established a schedule to where it helps mitigate that burnout.
Yeah.
Because it used to be things like with this industry in Glacier specifically, it starts slow. And then all of a sudden, it's like the floodgates opened. And then all of a sudden, it's like intense for 6 weeks.
Yes.
And it took us a while to figure it out because I was like, sorry, I need you every day. Like, I'll still do what I can to help you, but I need you out there. But now, again, we've hired, I think, more intelligently, and then Sam's developed this amazing schedule. And so where people are getting that absolutely needed time off, and that helps. It does. It helps keep the stoke high.
Yeah.
And then there's, like you've said, there's just a lot of different things that we can do to help them. But there typically is a burnout time, but that's when we try to get ahead of it. Throw in, let's do a kickball tournament in the front yard. Just anything to help boost morale. And
it is a family.
It is.
It becomes your family. And you probably have when you get really good at being a guy, what does that usually take?
Oh boy. I think it's very case dependent.
Yeah.
But truly probably 5+ years.
Yeah,
because each year, so our brand new guides, they're doing training during the spring runoff, early season, but then they're comfortably running the whitewater at lower levels. If they come back for year 2, then we're like, now we need to train you how to run this on high water with customers. It's not the same as training. So there's like phase 2 of training. And then even your 3rd-year customer, because then you're changing them into kind of more leadership roles within the company or on these trips. And then by year 4, usually you've seen it all, but there's always something new to be learned. Yeah. But then by year 5, I think is when you've got probably the most well-rounded experience under your belt.
Yeah, that's good to know.
Yeah.
It does take some time.
It can. And because, so with this river, as you've experienced, like, there's curveballs. Like, you mentioned there's people that float the river and they're confident, but then come May, it's not the same river as it was. And they don't know what had happened with the spring runoff. It can take trees down. Now you've got river-wide blockages. There's strainers. There is just something new every single year on this river. So no matter how many years you have on this river, it's just something that we talked about. It's humbling, but you just have to have your head on the swivel and be vigilant and not overconfident.
Oh, that's such good advice. Not to go there, but my son and I were involved in a potentially situation due to the fact that they didn't really scan the river.
Sure.
And maybe the tree went down. Maybe. Oh, there was a strainer. Yeah. Trees are essentially called strainers because they you can get caught in them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's how people die.
Yeah.
And you got to be really cognizant of that. And I think being on that river is not just, I tell my kids, I can't just go out there willy-nilly. You got to know what the hell you're doing.
Yep.
And my son and I experienced that. And it was a moment for us. But I love what you just said. You have to be confident. You got to very aware.
Yep.
It's a serious recreation. So fun.
It is. Yeah.
It is so much fun.
Yeah.
So your whole summer is essentially pretty wrapped up into that. That's your primary business.
It is.
Do you ever get a chance to get away?
We try.
You try?
Not necessarily away, just on the river ourselves.
You do?
Yeah.
You don't get sick of it?
No, because it's different when you're out there every day with training or on a commercial trip. But when we get to just go out and float our favorite sections, just like on our own timeline, bring the dogs.
And the kids.
Yes, and the kids. So it's fantastic. So no, because I think with any business, I mean, it was a major learning curve, but it's one of those things, I think, because we put so much of our focus, like I don't just hand it over and say, okay, guys, have fun. Like, you know what to do. We're there constantly. And
to be.
Yeah. So when it works out, when I feel like abandoning the company or people, then I'm like, okay, I think we can pull off an afternoon float. And anymore too, our favorite floats are like those early morning floats or just end of day floats anyway.
Good for you.
Yeah.
You have to get out there and just remind yourself why you do what you do.
Yeah.
Because these smiling faces that come over there, that was amazing.
It is, yeah.
You forget because you're caught in the mundane daily aspect. And that's good that you take some time and get away and get back to appreciate why you started this whole process. Yep. But I do want to transition into kind of our last little piece, which is managing Montana's waterways, the balance between recreation and conservation. I know we have coming up, some of the biggest topic that Montanans are facing is managing those that go onto the river. I know with you guys, you are under a microscope from the government. Yep. The government has to talk to me a little bit about that. Do they come in and what do they do to regulate?
Yes. So the National Forest Service, they're essentially the managers of the permit under which we operate.
Okay.
And we're very exceptionally grateful for that. And so for being trusted with that, because it wasn't an easy process to obtain that permit. Okay. They have a very strenuous, thorough vetting process in order to be one of the permit holders. And
your original, or they originally have the permit and then it's carried over? Do you have to do it every year?
It's so when Robert Jordan was the permit holder, it essentially needs to be transferred because it's not like a tangible, like you don't get to pay for it. It's not like you buy the permit when you purchase the company.
Okay.
The Forest Service has full regulation over who gets the next permit if they want to extend it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, like I said, it was a very long vetting process, and my husband Justin had to become an outfitter for record, which is basically meaning that he's certified, he knows the rules of the Montana, like state, the river recreation, all of it. And so he obtained that, and in getting that, then they allowed us to have that permit. And we had to prove to them, like, this is our business plan. They weren't just going to willy-nilly hand it over.
It's a legit operation.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, we did that. But over the years, there's plans. And so usually right now it's a 10-year plan. And so they'll authorize the permit to us. It's good for 10 years, but knowing at any point in time because we're evaluated every year. And so if we're doing things that don't align with what they need or the rules and regulations,
they can revoke it?
They can. Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay.
And so we have to dot our I's and cross our T's.
Which means, do you have to report how many people you have on the river per day?
Every single human being that goes down that river, every user, they call it, we have to report those numbers.
Wow.
And so, we have a process in place that allows us to do that. But
what does that information give them?
So it just gives them an idea of how many people, because what they'll do is they'll add up how many we're taking, how many the other permit holders are taking.
Okay.
And then they can get a big picture of what, at least commercially, what's getting put down the river. Right now with the new comprehensive river management plan that they're working on.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah, it's in draft right now. And so they have a great team in place right now that I think they're able to take, because it's not just establishing, okay, this is our max capacity. You have to figure out what it's going to take to establish that max capacity. It's not something that they just pulled out of a hat. So they're observing like remarkable values on how it affects wildlife, the geology, the social aspects. Right. So it's this major comprehensive analysis that the Forest Service right now is fully involved in studying that. Okay. And so what they want to do essentially, and Wild River is so on board for this. Okay. Because we've always felt like it's a necessary, not evil, it's necessary. It just needs to happen on such a precious, pristine river that we have. We want to keep it that way. And sorry to backtrack a little bit, but that was one of our biggest driving force. When I talk about Wild River's purpose, it's not to just put numbers down the river. It is to make sure that we are respecting the rivers. We're respecting the private users as well. We're respecting other companies. And it's never been about just how many people can we get this year. We have a threshold. We have established that internally. And so that's why you'll see, because we have a business plan in place. And with that in mind, like I said, we've set that internal threshold to where no, this is what we personally comfortably feel like this impact or lack thereof at least will be on this river system. And with that though, the big picture now is what the Forest Service is doing along with the National Park Service, because they're part owner of their property line on the Middle Fork. And then, of course, the North Fork, they border the river as well. And then, with this plan, this analysis, it takes time. And so they're gathering these thresholds. And so with that, they'll establish and say, okay, based off of this is where we feel like once we've hit this point, now we are going to start to negatively impact all these different,
that impacts the environment. And how we manage the parking lots that we're in. Because tourism has gone up.
It has, yeah.
But here's my other question for you. They only give so many permits out for rafting touring down. guiding companies, right? Are we at max capacity with that?
Yeah,
max amount of permits.
Yeah, they won't. They've been there's 5 permit holders right now. And
because I didn't think there were many companies around Glacier National Park in that area, right? There's 5.
Yeah, there's 4 companies and then but 5 permit holders.
Okay.
Yeah, and
so really there isn't another option for another company to come in and establish themselves, right?
Yeah, not likely, but it's at the discretion of the Forest Service.
Of the Forest Service.
I doubt that if anything right now, they're looking at, I believe, lessening use on the river overall. But what that looks like, it's too.
And the other thing is, little devil's advocate side.
Yeah.
As a Montan, and I'm also seeing, now you're putting this in perspective. We've already maxed out on rafting company. So there's going to be no more.
Potentially.
Right? Yeah. But we are continually growing in population. We have more people moving here wanting to recreate on that river. So I'm assuming that the need to start understanding that piece. Now, in the North Fork, they have proposed, and I think they're going to implement that soon, that private owners, private people that want to come on with their own rafts, you have to obtain a permit. I think it's a daily permit.
Yeah.
Okay. Similar to what's happening in Glacier for the Going the Sun Road. I know there are people that are pretty upset.
Yeah. It's an obstacle. Yeah. And I'll say, and not to speak on behalf of the Forest Service or the Park Service, but I know right now what they're trying to do is just obtain information. So right now with the commercial companies, they have hard numbers. They know exactly what we're sending down the river, but privately, they don't know that yet. They don't have those numbers. They've trialed different things over the years of having like counters sitting out there. And then,
that would require a job position.
Yeah.
That's money.
Yeah. So they've had universities come out and do similar studies. And it's my understanding that what they want to do is first just have an idea of what they're looking at for private users. And so with that, having a free permit system in place where it just says, we're not going to accept or deny. It's not that. You just have to just submit that, yep, I'm going to be on the river. There's going to be 6 people in our party. We have 2 crafts. We're going to put in at this location and take out at this location. And so with that information, it will help them establish that overall like max capacity that they want to be seen on these rivers. And yes, is it an obstacle? Absolutely. To take the 4 minutes, 5 minutes to jump online the day of your trip or whenever. Because I think and I'm the same way, like trying to get into the park. I don't typically know that I've got an afternoon off or I have some free time. And so super last second, I'm like, oh, my afternoon just freed up. I want to go drive into the park and do a hike. Oh no, I can't get in. Yeah. So there's a little bit of planning that goes into that. We have to, like I said, myself as a resident, I have to do the exact same thing as everybody else. And so, I don't know what's going to come from that. I'll say that's not up to me.
Yeah,
no.
And I do think that this is going to be a long rollout.
Yeah, it is.
I can foresee a lot of pushback happening initially and a lot of people getting fined. Go, oh, oops, I didn't know that existed.
Sure.
A lot of little leniencies, but I think it's going to come with some for sure pushback.
Yeah.
For at least a while until like with the Going the Sun Road, you have to just accept it and be used to it.
Yeah.
And especially when you have family coming in, you have to plan.
Yeah.
But I think though, as a taxpayer, knowing where our money's going for this, I personally want to know what's the end.
Yeah, and I think this is one thing they're doing really well now is the Forest Service, they're holding public informational meetings. So as an individual, it is, yeah. So as an individual, you have every ability to sit in on these informational meetings. You can partake in conversations. You can ask these questions. It's very open forum. They provide information to you. There's question and answer. They also have public comment periods. So they have this in phases. So phase 1, there was an opportunity. They essentially made public the draft where they have it right now with the proposed changes.
Yeah.
So as an individual, I absolutely highly recommend that people if they have any concerns or questions, submitting those in those public forum, those locations. And so I know a lot that information's available on the National Forest Service site. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. And then they're going to move into phase 2 and where they'll provide a bit more information, and then people can give recommendations. They don't know what they don't know. And it's important that everybody is vocalizing their concerns. And and it's been very, I'd say, inspirational, but it's been empowering, I think, because I see how the Forest Service is being very receptive to public comment, not just oh, hey, tell me what you want to say or complain about, and then we're just still going to do what we want to do. They're not going about it like that at all.
Well, because I think also, too, on the flip side of all this, once they do have some data collection, I'm a data person. I love
numbers.
Data collection.
Yeah.
And then what that looks like, they put it all out there. It could impact the rafting company's business.
Yeah.
Didn't realize we had this many people that are local Montanans on there. You guys may have to cut back on how many people can go out.
Here, that is an absolute, that could happen. And
that could happen.
Yeah. And so
how are you going to prepare for that? Because that could really impact your bottom line.
Yeah. And I think until we know what those numbers are, it's hard to know how to react. But one thing with us is because we're not, if you look at the overall use commercially, Wild River is truly the smallest slice. And so depending, and this is one of our food for thought for them, when they come back and say, okay, if we are going to cap commercial use, all we are asking is that it's done in an equitable, fair manner. And they don't just say, oh, because historically you've used more, we're going to give you more, or we're just asking for a fair share of that.
Yeah.
And so hoping that they are hearing us and understanding that you can't just hand over X amount or percentage more to other companies, then you're creating a monopoly and whatnot, which very specifically or negatively affects us. But I think with where we're sitting, and this is even the whole time as our relationship with the Forest Service, and especially during the pandemic, we saw the overuse that was happening.
Yeah.
We were like, whoa, something needs to be done. This can't happen. But we, again, because we had that internal control, we made sure to keep our numbers within a reasonable amount. Gotcha. We didn't take advantage. We had better numbers than we've probably ever had, but it wasn't an astronomical jump because we care about the capacity and what impact we're having. But yes, to answer your question, there very well can be a direct impact to all commercial companies and permit holders.
But I think that's good that you're diverse, your business.
Yeah.
Adding additional cabins, things where it might offset if things like that roll out.
Yeah.
But I think that's smart and savvy, and what a good business owner does.
Yeah.
You have to be prepared for anything long term.
Yeah.
Especially since you guys are working on land. So that is all the things that if you got to think that most people don't even think about.
I learned real quick from somebody who likes routine and organization. None of that happens on the river, not just the river, but running a business, because we're at the helm of Mother Nature. So an overly rainy season can hugely negatively impact our numbers, or just overall traffic to the park and the park itself. If something was to happen, I know if the road opens later than usual, people are coming later than usual. Right. But yet so much is out of my control. We can prepare and have the best business plan in place, but or wildfires, it can just hard shut us down in a heartbeat. So I've learned to just accept what comes and do the best with what we have.
Excellent person to talk about things that are
business. Yeah.
Really, you are.
Yeah.
That's remarkable. All the things that you've learned. You should probably write a guide
to
owning an unpredictable rafting company business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or a guide to serious recreation.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
We've had some really good conversations, but we're down to our last two questions. We've talked about a lot of stuff. I'm really impressed by you.
Thank you.
I'm so glad you came on today. So thank you so much. Okay, our first question is, when you listen to this podcast 10 years from now, what message would you want to leave for your future self? A reminder of who you are today, what drives you, and what you never want to forget.
Oh,
I know it's a loaded question.
Good question. I think more than anything, because we always, is if we glance into our past at the time of living it, you think, oh, I should have done this or could have done more. But when you look back, you're like, wow, I was motivated. Wow, I did it. I did it all. And I think potentially where I may be in 10 years, just to know that I put everything I had into what I do, because that's all we can do. And just maybe commending myself because oftentimes as we sit here today, you think, okay, I could be doing more or better. But yeah, I think in retrospect, I think the positives and the good things have always outweighed the bad. And yeah, just keep that ambition, because it's easy to maybe slowing down, I think, is a necessary aspect in life. And that's the other one thing that I think I've always struggled with, is knowing when to slow down. But now having my daughter, now she's 10, and my stepson, David, who's 18, having kids, it sometimes shifts your focus of what's important. And that's been cool, because that truly has, believe it or not, slowed me down. It's kept me busy in many other ways.
Yes.
But it's...
How old is your daughter?
10.
So in 10 years, she'll be 12.
Yeah.
A lot changes.
Yeah, it does. It really does.
In perspective.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. That's awesome. I love that. I love that. My second question this is a fun question. What's the wildest, funniest, and most unexpected thing you've ever seen happen on a rafting trip?
Oh boy.
Do you have any crazy groups of people that come up and you're like, oh no?
So yeah, we get all walks of life that come onto our trips, and good, bad, or otherwise. And so I guess it's interesting. Every single day, there's somebody that seems to throw you for a loop, and just to try to think. And we've had, I'll just say,
tons.
Yeah. And we get a lot of bachelor parties, bachelorette parties that do overnights and whatnot. But I don't know. I think, I don't really have
Did you ever yourself experience a really crazy rafting trip? Have you had any wild ones?
Yeah, I mean...
What, have you done aren't they level 5s?
Yeah, so not on this river, but yeah, the Grand Canyon in itself was...
You get kicked out of
so memorable. Believe it or not, our little 13-foot raft, which you don't normally take down the Grand Canyon, it's just too tiny. We kept her upright the whole time.
Wow.
And so...
That's good guiding and steering.
It is. That's all my husband, because I was very green at that time. And so...
Really? Was it a single paddle?
He had an oar frame, so
okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so he had the oars, but I just did a lot of high siding, so we'd punch through those rapids, and I had to throw on my weight to the front of the raft or to the side of the raft. But
have you yourself ever been thrown out?
Oh yeah.
But on North Fork?
Oh yeah.
During what are the little area that's the popular, the toilet bowl?
All of it, yeah. So actually, I had and it was entirely my mistake as I was guiding a trip, because that's the one thing is I still love about doing this is I still get to be a guide. I still get to drive the buses and do all the things that everyone else is doing. And yeah, we had just put on the river for a full day, and safety is paramount. So I was like, all right, to all the clients, I was like, helmets on, let's do this. And we're floating down, and we weren't even on the river for maybe 4 minutes. And I ended up catching my oar, and it was entirely, like I said, my mistake, but a learning experience, because I had never been in that predicament. It was a really tight, narrow, low water spot. And my left oar, unfortunately, got lodged in between two rocks on the side of the riverbank. And the handle of it, so the oar is stuck, my boat's still moving forward. Once it finally dislodged, the oar released, and I basically just ejected out of the boat. And
you didn't get hurt, did you, on the rocks, did you?
I had a pretty good laceration on my head, but it was, I'll say, all things considered, the other guides and even the clients, I mean, they were just so great about it, because I basically had to self-evacuate out to the road to get back to base, and then we ended up through radio communication getting another guide out there. But
so the whole tour, the whole group is just basically managing the boat by themselves
for a minute,
down
for a very fast. Because I ended up luckily,
there panic on the boat?
No, they were super cool. Because as I was at one point out of the boat, I quickly stood up, and I was telling them, "Hey, all right, I need everyone back paddle." So I'm still guiding, just from not on the raft. So then they're back paddling to me, and then I was running along the shore. And then I hop back in the boat, and then everyone turns and looks at me as there's blood trickling out of my head. But But no, I was like, hey, I'm good, I promise. And so I whistled to get attention from the other guides and then everyone. We put all those policies or the procedures in place. And we did what we would do for anybody. But that was, again, I'll call it a rookie mistake. Hadn't experienced that before. Get that oar in real quick or quicker than I did anyway.
Little details can really screw them.
Yeah, but I can tell you now, I don't come along a bank without throwing those oars in real fast.
Yeah, so you learn.
But yeah.
Oh, wow.
But
I'm sure there's tons. You could probably write a little book.
There are
little incidences that people talk about or guys that experience certain things.
One thing I'll say, and not to keep us going, but so I think more than anything, the biggest, most impactful piece of what we do is hearing the stories of people that not only do they come to Glacier or they come out here because they're like, hey, the big ticket was like Glacier National Park, right? And then they're like, hey, we want to go rafting while we're there or horseback riding. And so they come rafting and they'll say, we've done all the things since we've been here, but rafting this with you guys was hands down the absolute best experience of our entire vacation. We've had people that have come and they've written us letters that have said, our family's been going through a lot. So-and-so has been dealing with this medical situation. And so we just needed to take a breather and do some recreating. And the positive impact that their experience on our river or with our company and rafting has had on not just them personally, but their family. We've had stories that put us to tears because of the impact. And so all of the fun, crazy groups, but also because people don't have this in their backyard. They don't have the mountains and the rivers, and being a piece of that has just been, I think, by far the most rewarding part of owning Wild River Adventures.
That's awesome. That's super. You guys should be really proud of yourself.
Thank you.
That's wonderful. We're down to our last question. Okay, here we go. If you pass the mic to a Montana woman to share their story on the IWD406 podcast, who would she be and why?
I would select Aubrey Laronia. She is a dear friend, beautiful woman, an amazing entrepreneur. So Aubrey and her family, they own Swan Mountain Outfitters. Swan Mountain does a lot. They do horseback riding, snowmobile tours, hunting, guided hunting trips, and much more. But Aubrey, I'll say, has had a large impact on me as a businesswoman. I'll say, and I'll say it to her, she's very inspiring. So when we have conversations, she's just dialed. She's got it. She's right where she needs to be. And I always find that very inspiring when I talk to her. And her level of intellect is astonishing. I admire her for that. And then the cherry on top is that she is just the sweetest, kindest person.
Our family Swan Mountain Outfitters.
Yeah, good.
We've done bear hunts. We've done snowmobiling adventures. We've done horseback riding, scaling waterfalls.
Yeah.
They are one of our bigger raffle sponsors for Ski for IWD. Mm-hmm. They are amazing.
Yes.
And they have some of the best horses.
Yeah. Yep.
They do a great job. And we had a really fun experience, a fishing experience that we did. My in-laws came into town. We all rode horses to Bond Lake. I didn't know Bond Lake exists.
Huh.
It's this little beautiful lake, middle of nowhere, and in the middle of the mountains. And I can't remember which area we were at, but Huckleberry Patch was. It was just talk about being out wildly experience.
Yeah.
That was it. It was fun. My kids have had a great time. Some of the hunting excursions my husband set up at Swan.
Yeah.
And I cannot wait to talk.
Good.
So thank you so much for passing the mic to her.
Yeah.
Lexi, you've been absolutely wonderful to talk to. I've learned so much. I'm really impressed by you.
Thank you.
And I'm so glad you guys have this amazing family-focused business here in Montana.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Come back.
Will do.
Awesome.
Thanks.
A special thank you to our podcast guest. You can find all of her links in the description of this episode. If you like what you heard, please hit subscribe. You will be notified of future podcast guests. Follow us on our social media platforms and stay tuned for our next podcast chat with an amazing Montana woman.